Nazi Administrative Divisions, Part 2, Vichy and Occupied France. Occupied France was divided into two main sections, an occupied zone and a free zone. To understand France's situation, we have to go back to 1939, which is when Britain and France declared war on Germany due to their invasion of Poland, which we discussed in Part 1. Germany wanted to invade France, but something was stopping them. It was the Maginot Line, which is a series of fortifications along the German border. So if Germany was to invade France, it would have to go through Belgium. So Germany gathered their forces and swiftly invaded the Benelux, completely taking Luxembourg and the Netherlands, as well as half of Belgium. France, Belgium, and Britain immediately mobilized troops to halt the German advance. But the Germans had a strategic trick. They would go around the concentrated Allied troops in Belgium and cut them off. The Germans encircled them to the sea and wiped them out. Now Paris was exposed. At the same time, a political crisis arose in France between two sides. One side, led by an ex-marshal, Philippe Pétain, argued that France should collaborate or sign an armistice with Germany. The other side, led by Charles de Gaulle, said that France should fight on and defeat Germany. The French Prime Minister acknowledged that the French army was too weak to fight on, but the British encouraged France to continue the effort. The British encouragement didn't help as Paris fell, with Hitler notably making a visit there. The French relocated their headquarters to Tours, but eventually even Tours fell. Now France had three options. Either set up a French exile government in London. This was unpopular because French politicians at the time suspected the British of betrayal, or they could collaborate with the Germans, or they could retreat. The French Prime Minister Paul Renault and his government contemplated, but couldn't come up with a solution. So the French Prime Minister resigned. He was succeeded by Philippe Pétain, who, as you remember, was in the pro-armistice faction. So began the French armistice with Germany. The armistice would be signed at the same railcar in France where the Germans surrendered in World War I, which added a little bit of historical irony to the event.
Ta jeunesse, ta flamme et ton espoir joyeux, et nous travaillons sans faiblesse, en digne fils de nos aïeux, pour que ta gloire un jour renaisse.
France's leaders were old and tired, and the oldest and most tired was Marshal Pétain, egged on by men like Laval, who saw in a German victory his chance for personal power. On June 16th, Pétain asked for an armistice. The news is carried to Hitler, who received this word of a great nation's fall in a characteristic manner. A tax of 400 million francs a day was to be imposed on the French people to support the German army of occupation.
The negotiations of the armistice were dictated by the Germans and harsh on France, and the armistice came as follows. Germany would annex the province of Alsace-Lorraine due to the fact that it was part of the old German Empire, and Hitler wanted the territory with Germany. The northern regions would be given to the Belgian military administration. A northern German military occupation zone would be set up to control French ports and to place German military units to prepare for an invasion of Britain. A free zone would be set up in the south. It is also most commonly known as Vichy France, because its capital was the city of Vichy. Vichy France had now consolidated itself into a state under the leadership of Marshal Philippe Pétain. Philippe Pétain was technically a democratic leader, But Pierre Laval, who was a minister, gave authoritarian powers to Philippe Pétain, essentially turning him into a dictator. Philippe Pétain then went on to establish his own fascist ideology and took an anti-Jew Nazi policy, and under his ideology, many Jews were killed as part of the Holocaust. He famously made the milice, which was a military police which was made to crack down on political opponents of the Vichy regime. Thousands of resistance fighters were arrested in this process. Lastly, an Italian occupation zone was established on the Italian-French border. The armistice also stated that the French army would be limited to 100,000 men, and all French Navy ships would be brought back to ports. This provoked Operation Catapult, which is when the British Navy seized French ships and attacked Vichy France's Mediterranean fleet. Philippe Pétain was able to use this event as a justification to say that the British had betrayed the French. At the same time, the French politicians who wanted to continue the fight against Germany formed Free France, led by Charles de Gaulle. Free France would be an exile government in London, but would also conduct resistance operations against Vichy France. In Vichy France Syria, British and Vichy French troops exchanged gunfire. Meanwhile, in Africa, Vichy France held large colonial possessions, which the Germans and Italians were able to use to move their troops through. But eventually, the Allies launched Operation Torch in November of 1942, which is when they attacked from North Africa and gave the territory to Free France. Now, Nazi Germany was very concerned that Vichy France would be attacked by the Allies and their southern flank would be exposed. So, Hitler decided to make the controversial decision to dissolve and occupy Vichy France. After this, Philippe Pétain pretty much gave up, as he knew that he couldn't defeat the Germans. Meanwhile, Pierre Laval and several French ministers wanted to keep Vichy France alive, and were even looking at collaborating with the Allies to do so. But in the end, their efforts were useless, and France was liberated after the Normandy landings by the Allies.
Aux Français de demain.